Good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Wesley Casella, and I'm so grateful that you are starting your year out with another in our series of internal communications. This conversation, I'm reluctant to call them webinars because they're really dedicated to the challenges that you're facing and conversations that we can have together. But this one is covering content calendars, and we are so lucky to have my friend Meagan Camp joining us. But before we start, I just want to cover a couple housekeeping items. First of all, you will see Clarissa Page in your chat. She is the technical advisor and Zoom producer who can answer any questions if you have any challenges. Also, please keep your chat open. She'll be dropping some links periodically that might be of help to you or that can allow us to connect beyond this webinar. And I'm looking forward to many more deep dives with you. This is the third in a series of 6. So we're going to have 3 more, January 24th, February 14th, and March, I believe, 6th will be other topic areas within internal communications. And because you are attending, I'll be letting you know about them and sending out discount codes so that you can continue to learn more as we progress. One of the things that if you've been with us before, you know, I send out a survey in advance, and that is to help us craft each conversation around the challenges you're facing. So I put these series together with a, kind of 35,000 foot topic ideas, but really you help me to create the content that we deliver. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time out to complete that survey. We got a couple responses in this morning, so it didn't help us necessarily build the survey, but since we have such a robust Q&A and discussion period, if we haven't captured what it is that your question is, that's a great time for you to pipe in and we'll do our best to answer it. So as we start, creating content calendars prevent the TLDR response. For anyone who doesn't know what TLDR means, it's too long didn't read. And it's actually a thing. It's not just a concept that people talk about when they're analyzing content that they've received, but it's also turned into kind of a snarky email response that people receive when they've sent out communication that doesn't align with what their people need. And nobody wants to get an email that says TLDR, too long didn't read. It's kind of flip, and it makes all the effort that you put into your content creation kind of diminished, and that doesn't feel good. So what we're going to be talking about today is what a content calendar is, how to deploy it, how to use it to organize not only your information, but your channels, and then how to help other people help you if you are the point person for internal communications within your organization. So I'm going to move forward with our slides over here. And come on, there we go. So we're going to talk about the responses that you provided us. Then we're going to go through 2 different types of content calendars. It's not that the content calendars themselves are necessarily different, though they are, because we're each using different templates. Megan's going to talk to you about what external content calendaring looks like. I'm going to talk to you about what internal content calendaring looks like, and hopefully we'll bring the entire picture together for you. Then we will go into the themes and solutions that we drew out from your survey responses, and then we'll go into the group discussion. If you've been through the other webinars discussions that we've had, you'll notice that I'm moving the discussion to different places within the agenda, but it makes sense as your information rolls into me. So hopefully this is a great use of your time. And then at the end, I'll talk briefly about how you can connect with me for follow-up questions and how to not only use me and Megan as resources, but some tools that you can take away with you. I'll be giving you some QR codes so you can just snap right into being able to download some helpful tools. So with that, I'm going to briefly cover the problems that we're trying to solve. From your survey, It really broke down into 4 different issue areas: what a content calendar is and does, how to build an effective content strategy and cadence around a document that you either share with other people, or if you are a one-stop shop, how you can organize your thoughts and design metrics around what successful communication looks like, figure out what doesn't work, and as you move forward, streamline that process so you're assured of success all the time. How to leverage your content calendar, meaning how do you reduce workloads and streamline your communications process. Content creation, preventing inbox overwhelm and encouraging engagement. A lot of you ask questions about how do you not only create engagement from the audience member who may be receiving the message, but also how do you create engagement from the people who are helping you create this content? Maybe there are people who are reporting on different departments or different geographic hubs. So we'll be discussing a little bit about how to use this tool to wrap them in and make the process easier for them. And then information sharing, how do you identify resources? How do you create collaboration? How do you take this content calendar and the various channels you're deploying your information on, and then have an end spot where anybody who needs to learn more or ask questions can go to without taking up your time, if you've answered all of that information in your critical comms. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Megan and let her share her screen and talk about what this content calendar is and how you can use it.
Thanks, Elizabeth. All right. If you actually could turn off your screen share, Elizabeth, I could pop mine up.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Megan. I had the great fortune of meeting Elizabeth early 2022-ish after she gave a great talk to a group in Dallas, which is where I'm from, although I'm based in DC now. And we've had such a great time getting to know one another. And what's so fun about what we do professionally is we teach others how to kind of see the threads of either content or stories or kind of things that maybe you think you've seen 100 times and wouldn't be interesting to anyone else, and actually turn those into either culture or turn those into content or turn that into stories you can share, internally, externally, all that kind of fun stuff. So I've had such a great time getting to know Elizabeth, and I'm really grateful I get to chat with you all today. My background is in social and mostly out of the publishing world. I started out as a magazine editor in and out of college and for a long period of my career. And as I was getting involved in publishing, starting to work in magazines was really around the advent of people and companies having pages. And then, of course, those companies and or publications having to chop up let's say a 200-page issue into 4 weeks of content in lots of different ways to capture lots of different readers that maybe miss things or share extra content, all that kind of stuff. So when I take a look at how I build content calendars, it's really similar to how I actually build editorial planners or calendars for, if I'm looking at a huge chunk of content that may not always connect in a really obvious way, and thinking about how do we repurpose it, how do we refresh it, how do we tell the stories differently to different audiences based upon where we're going to meet them when we post it or email it or post it on a website or whatever the actual delivery method is going to be. So this is a little bit of a background on me. First byline in 2004 when I was in college, and then throughout my career, I was consistently being asked by either other writers or companies that I would work with on stories or whatever, how we were building our strategy, how we were actually tackling this idea of no longer having to rely on long form content, or what do we do with the leftover stuff, or what do we do with behind the scenes types of things, and how do we get more people engaged from 5 generations of potential followers, readers, etc. And so when I launched my company in 2017, I kind of had a stable of companies or influencers or whoever that I was working with who were all tackling the exact same challenges and questions that you guys submitted in your survey responses. It is a constantly evolving space, social media, and I love it so much kind of for that reason. It's frustrating, of course, but at the same time, it's always innovative. So there's always a place for you is kind of the bottom line of social from my point of view. And so when I come in and I help train teams or I help a marketing group get off the ground or a startup going or something fun like that, that's really the core questions we're tackling. How do we get all of this information together? How do we organize it strategically? How do we build a consistent routine? How do we pivot? How do we take data and make new decisions and refresh our strategy? And how do we stay on top of the things that are important to us and not get caught up in the loop of trends or algorithms or keeping up with other groups or brands or companies or competitors, whatever it may be, and staying really focused on our core values, our core messaging, or really just kind of sticking to the high view long-term goals. So that way we really know what we're doing and why we're doing it when we take the time or budget to have something made or a video executed or take on a new tool. So we're going to talk about that. And as I mentioned, my perspective is coming from social media, but the methodology I'm going to discuss is actually really an across the board method for creating content calendars for any of your external communications. And of course, social is one of those channels. And it's often the one that's kind of at the end. We post the recap, we post the did you know, or in case you missed it or whatever. And then we're always trying very hard to capture content live to make people feel in the moment. So it's kind of a combination of content you've already created and scheduled and is ready to go, making space for things that are going to happen with you getting an hour's notice. And then what are those important things that we need to be circling back around to consistently to make sure that every time we post something, we're reintroducing ourselves to the people who've met us for the first time or checked us out since the last time we posted. So I totally encourage also questions in chat. This is super conversational. I have, of course, read some of the things that were submitted earlier, but if there's anything that you have in mind that's relevant or, kind of pops up and you want to know more, please put that into chat. I have it up here on a second screen, so I'm happy to pivot and talk about that. So for me, the why of social and the why of external communications is who you're making it for. And so when I come into a team or I get embedded with a company, I remind them that social media is the link to a lot of different departments and teams and giving them access to audiences that help marketing teams diversify the way we're talking about a product or something like that. So, just this real quick overview, social media, of course, is really important for recruitment and retention, human resources. BD, huge. It is something that can be working continuously for you 24/7 if you have a big sales push or a BD strategy in place. Of course, marketing, it's natural pair with other things going on related to, of course, big newsletters, websites, brand changes, anything fun like that that marketing teams are working with. Having that identified role of what social media is supposed to accomplish in relation to those other projects is so key, and isn't something that should be left to the end for after some of the bigger pieces have been created or executed. For me too, it's a lot about client relationship building. A lot of times I work with companies who forget that this is their best external channel to connect and celebrate or amplify clients or customers and see them out in the open and remind them that, hey, we're there for you. We're championing you. We're watching what you're doing. We're so excited what's going on. And it's a really nice way, especially if you're involved in like big project work or you have long-term clients that you want to create new avenues to connect with them. Social media is a really natural pairing with that. And of course, if you're ever releasing information, say through a PR team, or you have any major announcements coming out, aligning that with your client relationship strategy or your CX strategy can actually help them, help release that information, of course, timely, but also it expands your reach, which is something that I know a lot of people wrote in about as well. I want to say too that the reminder I like to put out there is that your social media is not for you. It's not for your leadership. It's not for the people that send you things and go, hey, I want you to post this. Social media is for the people that haven't met you yet. You may have had a page, let's say a LinkedIn page that's 10 years old, and you have a group of followers. And now those followers, especially in the past 4 years, have probably gone through a bit of an upheaval like all of us. And so to actually understand that you're not creating content for that bank of people because they may not have unfollowed you, or may no longer be in your industry, may no longer be part of the space you're even creating or making products for or working in or whatever it may be. But it's for the people that you're trying to attract in the future. It is entirely about future building. And so kind of letting go of this idea that you need to satisfy a core audience or you need to satisfy someone up above you that has a better idea of what should be happening and why. That is really not how I present social media as an opportunity for teams. Really, it's about either bringing out another avenue for your employees or other groups or strategic partners or whoever it may be to participate publicly in your content, or it's for these people that you're trying to attract. So it's a lot broader than a lot of times when we talk about with social media, where we're trying to keep people engaged or we're trying to push new things and reignite our base and that kind of thing. If you kind of switch it around, you'll be a lot more free to experiment, a lot more free to ask questions and to play around and probably to fail a little bit more too. So the second thing I like to talk about, especially if you are in B2B, which is a space that I work in a lot, is remembering too that we use social. We are the users, we're the followers, we're the people who subscribe. They're the people that open our phones, in the late afternoon and do a little scrolling or catch up on the news or things like that. And so how we use social media as users, even if it's related to a newsletter or you're checking out a website of a great restaurant, we look at things so differently than we do when we're creating content or we're thinking about how best to open up those opportunities. If we're updating a website, or if we're launching a newsletter or a Substack, or we're writing a new strategy for social media, we have two totally different points of view when we're the user and when we're the creator. And so I love this graphic. I'm happy to share it anytime, but for you to think about how you emotionally create, how you create for yourself versus how you would want to be informed about information or keep up with a brand you love. Those are really two different spaces, and there's a lot of great research and a lot of great write-ups about this that actually will also help you leave behind a lot of the maybe preferences or must-haves that you think are really, really important that actually might be holding you back when you think about creating content. There is nothing worse than blank page syndrome, or even worse, a blank calendar if you are having to like plot the actual content calendar. And so learning or unlearning rather a lot of these things that we've built up in the 20 years that we've been on social media, or we've been getting, regular newsletters, or we've been working on websites for a company, will actually help a lot. So just a different perspective there. So barriers to successful content creation, incompatible tools, cumbersome submission process. This is really if you have employees or you have content creators or you're getting content from, let's say, customers, and it's really hard for them to actually just share it with you or for you to reach out and get from them. Let's see. Oh yeah, I can definitely send the graphic. Yeah, it's probably a little low res. Yeah, and I think you're going to get the deck, so don't worry about that. A lot of you guys mentioned the approval structure. This is huge. This is something that, especially if you're in a multi-layered marketing team or you have technical professionals and things like that, and you're having to write content on their behalf, or leaders in that, in that space, that's a really tough one. Training, actually having time set aside for you to understand maybe the software or apps that you've been given access to, or, even the content or the social media channels or the MailChimp or the WordPress itself, for you to actually get time set aside for you to become really comfortable in those spaces. That is sometimes a huge block. Often people are just kind of slotted into a role or responsibility that comes to content creation, maybe because of their age or because they did it in a prior role, or you've expressed interest and you want to kind of tackle it. But making sure that you defend your right for training is huge. But that is something that keeps a lot of people from taking it on kind of with gusto. And then lack of communication between different teams. This could be, as I mentioned, leadership. This could be HR. This could be, your customers to yourself. This is a lot of different ways, rather, that you can have a lot of breakdowns that cause that disconnect. So what do you do with unhelpful content or advice? This is another one that kind of came up. And this is something I deal with a lot when I work with teams, which is helping them create a strategy. So anytime they get pinged or messaged, hey, here's this, we want to post this, or we need to get this up today, Having a strong content calendar or content strategy is actually your pause where you can say, listen, hey, actually, that's a really great idea. We've already got content scheduled for the next month. I'm going to look for a really great place so it can be seen, so it can be used and it won't get, overloaded by a campaign we're running next week, or we're doing a giveaway or something like that. Or it's a holiday or whatever, that they don't know about, what's going to be coming up. There are a lot of strategies to getting around that. Same with the approval structure, and we're going to talk about that. So start where you are. If you've been running an email list or you've been managing social media for a company and you're feeling totally flat, especially at the beginning of the year, you're not sure what's working, what's not working. You don't know who's paying attention and who's not. And worse, you don't know who you actually want to be attracting. This is the perfect time. We're one day in. I hope your inboxes weren't horrific yesterday, but this is the time. This is the time for you to kind of let go of a lot of those things. And how I do that is often with a team. I get brought in just to do an audit where I take a look at, things like, hygiene of email lists or of broken links, all kinds of fun little nitty-gritty things that can quickly interrupt a user's experience. But when it comes to social, an audit is actually giving you a snapshot of those followers, of those groups or demos that you think that you're creating content for, but haven't been responding. Or if, let's say, you're taking on a new brand, or you've just bought a company or something like that, and you're inheriting old channels, or possibly you're opening up one that hasn't been used in a while that kind of got forgotten about last year. This is the really, really smart way for you to learn exactly what's working right now and let go of everything else. And so an audit is really, I mentioned it's the snapshot, but it's an idea of what do we know and what do we not know? So who are our competitors? What has been posted? Where are you visible? And that really is, let's say you had a Facebook, Instagram, and X account last year, but you kind of let X go towards the middle half of the year and started only kind of posting certain things to it, or, it just kind of got left behind because maybe you had a power user that doesn't really engage with it very much any longer. That could be as simple as that, just knowing where each channel is and how healthy it is. And by that, I mean how much you engage with it. When are your users active? Why are they following you? And using your data to make decisions. How often do you pull analytics? Do you use those analytics to compare to other types of analytics? Let's say your website with your social media, with your email. And actually laying out kind of all those three pieces together over time and saying, hey, past 6 months when we released a newsletter and the next day we posted the blog on social media, we got a hit on traffic for our website. There's a lot of storytelling that can be happening there by actually putting those analytics together. And a lot of teams keep social media to the side because the KPIs are different, and that those key performance indicators are often just the basics, like the likes and follows and shares and stuff like that. And really, we consider those still vanity metrics. And vanity metrics means that, yeah, those are great. It would be nice if we got 50 followers today, but that doesn't actually mean those people would convert to a sale or would turn into a lead or actually are going to be coming back, in a week to see what is new, or it might pop up in their feed. So analytics will tell you the larger story, and that's a lot more valuable than just kind of those mini viral moments or capturing something and it does really well and then you kind of are flat for a couple of weeks. So that's what an audit is. I can go into more detail if you have questions about it, but it really is just that data snapshot and making a consensus after that of what's working and what's not. So here are the platforms for social. I know some people asked and mentioned ones that they're stronger on than others, and they're not sure what's going on with X and what is Threads. So I won't go into too much detail about this because once again, we're users. I'm sure you're on one, if not multiple of these platforms. But really thinking about what do people do once they get to that page? What are they going to that site or that app for? If we're going to LinkedIn, we have our professional, headspace on. We're looking for, obviously networking, but maybe we're looking for resources. We're looking for information from thought leaders. We're looking for jobs. We're looking for recommendations. We want to see how people in our professional space are doing, and it's a very celebratory space. It's definitely changed a lot. It's become more personal. But since LinkedIn has expanded in the past 5 years, there's so much more to do once you're there. You can learn skills there. You can share content with people. You can interact in a different way than you would on your personal social media. So great question, Natasha, excuse me, about doing all platforms share when followers are active. Yeah, so I would say no, this is really where you'd be leaning on a more robust social media scheduling tool, which is where you would plan all of your content. You have an analytics package built in. There are some great ones on the market. I use Sprout Social is my favorite, which has a really, really deep dive analytics, so I can pull reports really quickly that tell a bunch of those different KPIs. And I can do it in some certain ways by date or by counts or whatever. You can create custom reports. So if you're looking for a tool and those are really important things that you want to know, you can tell a rep and put it into a demo, and they should be able to tell you if that's something they can create for you. Oh yeah, okay, great. Yes, Sprout's awesome. Think about bottom line, why you go there and what you should be supplying to followers based upon those impulses of why. Why are we there? Is Instagram because we want to see great photos, or we want to learn about something trendy? TikTok, are you wanting to learn all about, I don't know, deep cleaning? That's what my mom is on TikTok. She loves it. Claudia, I'm going to bank your question for the end. We can dig into that. So what are your goals for a content calendar? For any type of content plan or strategy, you have to have goals. Of course, once again, beginning of the year, I'm sure a lot of you have goals on your mind. But this is where you choose one or two. Do we want to start pushing our thought leadership more? Or we have a huge thought leadership strategy coming out in 2024, a slew of blogs and live videos, fireside chats. We're going to do things in person at a conference, whatever it might be. And we want to make sure people think of us as subject matter experts. They want to know that they can come to us and we can tell them exactly what's working, what's not, whatever your field of expertise is. Is it genuine brand awareness? Are you in building mode? We had someone who wrote in and said, you know, I want to build my reach. I'm not sure who I'm talking to. If that's a really big goal. Of course, if you're in a hiring frenzy right now, a lot of industries still are, recruitment, retention, major things. But choosing one or two of these and putting that into your first 2 quarters of strategy can be very, very powerful. That will help you eliminate a lot of the clutter that maybe you've used in the past as a crutch, just so you can have something to post or write about or put into your email. There's a lot more you can do here. Just focus on 1 or 2 goals, maybe 3 if you've got a really strong campaign already in play. And that will help you stay more focused. And I call this creating a culture of content. So for me, a content calendar isn't necessarily the Excel or the planning tool in your scheduling tool, something like Sprout or HubSpot or whatever it is. To me, it's actually much broader. I don't really see content as the deliverable, which is the video or the photos from the ribbon cutting or anything like that. To me, it's the idea. What is this idea you're talking about, or what is the product, or what is the general, kind of non-shape, that's a terrible way to put it, but the idea. I'll just stick with idea. And how do we sell it? How do we package it? Or how do we talk about it and create media for it that will help explain it to lots of different people in different ways? I mentioned, and I know we've talked about it in probably 100 other webinars, but we have a lot of different generations using social media or subscribe to newsletters or in our workforce. And we have to be adaptable to create content for them so we can reach them, so we can support them, so we can be sharing information with them. So kind of pulling back when you have your goals and breaking those into, well, I know we've got 5 really great blogs coming out. We're going to launch a product in March. And those things, how would you want to share them? Would it be in a video? Would it be just in a white paper? Would it be in a tutorial? Would it be in an infographic to make it super visual and fun and interesting to interact with? Is it going to be a live event? Is it going to be a LinkedIn Live, an IG Live, whatever it might be? But actually breaking it out into its sort of best delivery methods is actually how you can start unlocking what you want to put into your content calendar. And of course, how you're going to populate that newsletter. How are they going to be sending to the website, or they're going to be going somewhere else when you tell them what to do next? So this is from SEMrush, which if you don't follow them, especially on LinkedIn. It's a really great, they have a lot of great content, but a lot of great helpful graphs just like this that are telling you kind of, here's what's working, here's what's not, but just a lot of idea generation. So SEMrush is super awesome. And then I don't want to forget employees. I know Elizabeth's going to talk a lot about internal comms, but employee advocacy, which is building a strategy around getting employees to engage externally with companies' content or share content or post on their own about, let's say, a project or something like that. Getting them engaged and feeling comfortable to share and interact with company content is really, really important. This stat, it's from LinkedIn. On average, your employees have a network that's 10 times larger than your company's follower base. If you have 150 employees and 100 of them are active on LinkedIn or have updated their profile in the past couple of years, they have a really significant network that is much more far-reaching than your company's. How could you use it differently? Could they be helping you recruit roles? Could they be helping promote great culture? Could they be helping promote BD? There's a lot there that it's uncovered. And so employee advocacy is one of my favorite topics to talk about because there's a lot of disconnect between what people think they're allowed to post about and what policies are written internally for that and what can be changed so that way they actually do a lot of the content creation for you. And I know several of you mentioned that you wanted to get more content from different people or experts or leaders and things like that. So a really strong employee advocacy program can help you do that. So content's about trust building. So we're talking about a content calendar. What are we going to post today? What's going to go in that email? How are we building trust? How are we building trust with our employees, our clients, strategic partners, which may be any vendors or any clients you have, all that good stuff. So you have your goals. How are you building trust externally? How are you showing that you're the best of the best when it comes to talking about X topic? You'll want to think about planning content that is going to solve problems for people. It's going to answer questions for people, similar to SEO or, one of the different 100 strategies for SEO is what questions can you be answering for people right off the bat? People, put in Google straightforward questions and how can you get to that top of that page? Social media is exactly the same. People use search functions and apps. They look around for best practices. They're looking for the best restaurant, whatever it might be. And so for you to be able to keep up with that level of intensity, because social media is 24/7. Your website is 24/7. Newsletters can be forwarded. Once things go external, you don't have a lot of control over where it goes next. And that's a good thing. That can actually get you in new places and should always be something that it's encouraged. So how do you do that? How do you build a strategy so you can be constantly, I think someone actually put feed the beast in one of the fields. How do you feed the beast? Well, once you have your goals, you know which beast you want to feed. So the process for building the content calendar really has to start with your workflow. And these 4 things, the workflow, the website, the calendar, and evergreen content, which I'll discuss. The workflow is how are you continually capturing ideas, notes, dates, things that are going to be coming out or, when announcements are going to be made, whatever it might be. How are you capturing those specifically in a way and going, hey, when I sit down to write the next content calendar, we have a marketing plan meeting or whatever it might be, where am I putting all of these things that I hear throughout the week or I walk out of a meeting and I've got notes? Where do I put those things that are just for this process itself? So there's a lot here, I think, that can be super helpful if you actually sort of have a mindset when you go into a meeting or when you're scanning through your internal website or your app or whatever it is, and you're seeing, oh, wow, so-and-so is going to be applying to this conference, or we've got a project launching next month with a really great client. And just putting that somewhere. And what is that going to be? Is that going to be OneNote? Is that going to be Notion? Is that going to be in a Google Sheet? Doesn't matter where. That is entirely up to your workflow, but it's somewhere where you go often, to where it's quick and easy for you to drop in a note or copy and paste something from an email. And so when you come in and you've got hopefully some focused time to sit down and plan a content calendar, you've already got a list of notes or people to go to or things to discuss, and then decide whether those fit into those top goals. Now, the website I list on here, because for me, a website should absolutely be your hub. It's where all of your long form content lives. It's where the best most up-to-date information should live. It's your source of truth externally. And I know Elizabeth talks a lot about source of truth internally, but for me, the website is sacred. It's where you should be sending people. It's also where they get to kind of play around and learn more about you and learn from you and meet your people. So anytime you have updates to your website, of course, that should filter back into your email strategy or your social strategy, and keeping up to date with that, putting a bank of links that are your go-tos that have great information on them or things that are going to be updated. Super essential. The calendar is the content calendar. What is that going to look like? I think the template that Elizabeth shared right before I put on my slide, excuse me, was just one model that I've used for clients who love Excel. But if you have a social media scheduling tool, if you have a CRM, if you have another internal Teams channel just dedicated to marketing or to content calendars, there are a million ways you can organize this in a way that's visible and transparent for anyone else who needs to see it or approve or participate. And that's entirely up to you, but make sure it fits in the workflow of any other model or any other template that you use. So that way it's easy for you to kind of tap in and start populating it or start being creative with it. So if you need ideas of some strategies, that's where I can definitely give you some advice. I've built Kanban flows on Teams for groups before, because that's where they naturally go and brainstorm and set approvals and put in tasks, and that makes total sense to them, and it should. But there are other people that want it native to where they log into their Hootsuite and they have their content calendar there, and that makes sense for them because when they open it up, they're in the mindset to create and schedule and get organized around their social media. So don't feel like there's only one right way. There's a million, and it should fit within whatever your workflow is. Lastly, evergreen content. If you're not familiar with this term, it's a marketing term, but it really means something that is good anytime. You can share it. It's your about statement. It's a really great video. It's a package you put together for recruitment. It's, Throwback Thursdays, whatever it is. But it's things that you can actually probably populate an entire year's worth of calendar with evergreen content about 20 or 30%, because you know that content's going to perform well, or it's going to still be on brand. It's still going to have a great message. And that gives you some breathing room. So if you're worried about building a consistent schedule, if you're worried about what to do if you don't have enough content for the month, this is what you should be thinking about. What are those really great pieces of content that are great? Are those blogs? Are those, once again, videos? What is the content itself? It's out there, I promise. You may have seen it a lot of times, but once again, that does not mean that people who are just meeting you have ever seen it. So don't worry that you've overshared it or it's super repetitive. It's not. The stat I love and hate to use, but it's true, is on average about 3% of your followers may see your post in their feed. That is the rough ratio for posting content. But that really means that you have 97% of people who didn't catch it the first time around, or maybe didn't want to watch that video with sound, so they would rather read about it. Or you put that link up to the website to a new blog, for example, and they forgot to save it. Never discount the fact that people are following you for a reason. And if you remind them of things, if you reshare things, if you tell them, hey, did you miss this? Those are new opportunities for you to make that connection. And that is so important. So don't discount something if you feel like you've overshared it. It's probably not true. But I know we can all get tired of seeing the same things. But once again, that evergreen content can give you a little bit of breathing room in your planning. And I have here on the right types of content examples. And this is based on Sprout Social's social media index from last year. So this is a poll of a big group of marketers that use the tool. So obviously video, images, text-based posts.
Girls, don't forget your appointment at noon.
Don't forget your appointment at noon. That would be terrible. I hope they don't miss it. All right, up next. So tools of the trade. I can't go into 2024 without talking about AI, because I'm sure you have already seen some sort of AI tool embedded in any number of products you already use. If you've got Copilot going, if you have Canva and you've got Canva Pro, you've got all kinds of fun things out there creating on demand. I think I sent an invoice in QuickBooks this morning, and it gave me the option to AI generate the subject line of my invoice. So, if you've dabbled in AI, if you're an AI pro, if you have stayed as far away from it as possible, that is totally fine, but it's more about what is actually going to be coming out that will support you. What can help take a video and help you cut it down, add a title slide, and add some music to it in less time. That is one of the biggest lifts, is that actual content creation of video or music, or how do we add subtitles or captions. There's a lot of tools out there. There's a great site called AI Tool Report that sends out a daily newsletter. They also have a great website where you can actually type in what feature you're looking for and a price point, or free. And they have a list, I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of AI tools that they vet and post about. If you're into podcasting right now, there's one that will scan the audio and automatically generate your notes, your episode notes. So we're all used to kind of clicking the down button and seeing, okay, every segment here, links to resources here, here are all the books that we mentioned, here's where you can find the speaker's website. So it's out there. Even if it's something very small, there is a tool out there that's being created that you can try. So I definitely recommend dabbling if you'd like. There's a lot there to do anyway. So I'll get off that high horse, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what we do next. Wendy wrote, if video and images are both almost even on value, what is the ROI for video content since it takes so much longer to produce? Well, that's actually a great question. And I want to flip it around and say, if you're having a video made for other reasons, let's say it's part of, you know, a website refresh, or you're doing something with a client and you're capturing it. Social media is just one place where you can chop up some of that content. It's not that the ROI isn't there. Once again, that's based upon where you decide to post it and to who you want to see it. So if you have a particular group or audience that loves video based upon your analytics, that's where it would go. But it doesn't have to go to all 5 accounts and the website and the email. That sort of copy paste, post it and send it everywhere all at the same time is not successful unless you really feel like your audience is the same across the board, which likely is not. So saving money is one way to think about it. The lift of that content creation comes about differently if you have a great tool in place, but it can be more that you don't also have to have perfect video. It doesn't always have to have the best lighting. It doesn't have to have the right title slides, all that kind of stuff. Authenticity in 2024 is by far the most dominant trend. We are very tired of seeing things slick and overproduced, perfect grids and, you know, seamless video, things that are over edited. So there's a lot of leeway right now in the way we can deliver video that doesn't require you having to spend 4 hours trying to use CapCut, which is a really great video editor app, to make something super perfect or write it 10 seconds or whatever the thing is. So I wouldn't discount the value. It's really about, is your audience looking to you for video, or do they engage in video a lot? And then determine whether or not it's got enough ROI for you. So next up is tools of the trade. So I mentioned a few already. But when we're building a content calendar, you've got to think, well, how can I actually execute what we want to execute, like the video question? Social media scheduling tool, and there are many, many on the market. My biggest recommendation for this, if you don't have one, or if you're looking for one, you've got some budget for it, is to get as many demos scheduled as possible and have someone walk you through exactly how to use it, or the best way to use it, and ask your questions. What keeps you from posting? Can you post it on your phone? Can you fix something on your phone? How many users can you get with one license? Is there an approvals schedule, or excuse me, an approvals tool? So a lot of really great products have that thing where they'll send a notification to someone for them to approve a caption or approve a photo before it goes out, to help you have one less step of having to hop back over to Teams and send somebody a snapshot or a screenshot and say, hey, can you approve this? And then come back over and make the edits. There's a lot that can happen natively with some of the better tools. And then if you're looking for something free on the market, just download quite a few and see which one you can more easily create content with. It is entirely about making you prepared, and of course, making it easier for you to actually do it in the moment. Copy editing tool, super essential. If you're a Grammarly fan, that's the one I use a lot, but there are many on the market. Just that extra pair of eyes, possibly AI generated, to capture those or catch those typos before they go out. AI-powered content creator could be one of the image creators or Canva. Analytics, I've already gone into that. If you have a DAM, which is a digital asset manager, that's sort of your Lightroom, or if you use something like Open Asset, which is where you can sort all of your images into a library and add notes and have some pre-approved copy. That acts as one external source of truth. CRM, of course, your for sales or for any kind of lead management. And of course, internal comms. Yeah, Karen, totally agree. Sprout Social and Bamboo, which is their employee product that they have on the side. So these are some of the things to think about when you're trying to build out. Let's say you're actually hiring a role for social media, for a content manager. These are some of the things that you should be listing and have people explain what their comfort level is or what their preferences are. Once again, this is entirely about making it easier to do the work. So this is really all I wanted to capture today. The content calendar itself is kind of whatever you want to make it to be. Does it need to align with the marketing calendar? Does it need to align with a business strategy or a business plan? There's a lot here that, and some of the questions that I ask are some of the things to needle about that you can start to actually execute a content calendar based upon how you want to work. So I know we didn't go into actually how to, because there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more of how you work and what's upcoming and how you want to clean the slate for 2024. So I'm going to go back real quick to Claudia's question. So my employer's Facebook page has 23,000 followers, but analytics only tells me their age, gender, and location. How do I audit this audience further? There we go. Great question. This is really hard. A lot of the native analytics tools, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and things like that only go so far. And that's, for a number of reasons. And this is where you would, if you have a very specific data point you're looking for, you'd want to go and find a tool that's going to give that to you. Whether it's in a tool like we mentioned with Sprout, or it's something that's strictly about analytics. There are a number of them on the market that can do a deeper dive. And there's some that relate to your website. It could be people that just come to your landing page or click around. You can get a lot of information about the actual total picture of how someone may interact or, not interact with your content. So I'd recommend just looking around and doing some research on that, because you definitely can find it. So, okay. All right. Any other questions I can answer about content calendars or social, or, why is TikTok here? No, I'm kidding. I'm happy to answer. If not, I'm going to throw it back to Elizabeth.
Yes, sir. Sure, I can't help with anything.
Okay. It looks like Francine, you're unmuted. Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. That was a
No
mistake.
problem. Just didn't want to miss something. Okay.
All right. We had one quick question from Valerie. Two Valeries. So love to see an example of content calendars. I will put that, actually, that's going to be one of the resources you're going to get afterwards, is some different examples. I didn't want to go into them too much today because it kind of feels like a lecture as opposed to, kind of an idea generator. Valerie O'Brien, lineup demos, what other companies in Sprout? There are so many. If you're familiar with Hootsuite, which is one of the originals, there's Buffer, there's Planoly, there's Later, there's Hey Orca, there's a number of them. So I would suggest just doing a Google search for social media schedulers. You can actually also look, if you want to do it on your phone, look in the App Store or the Google Play Store first. Don't just go to Google, because not all of them have an app companion. But and you may actually also include any kind of features that you're interested in that search. But there are a number of them, and they vary on price points. They can go from free all the way up to $25,000, $30,000 a year if that's a really robust scheduling tool or analytics tool that you're looking for to add to your roster. And so there's a lot out there, and just definitely do your research. That's why I love demos, because then you can also see what they're able to do to you. And a lot of these packages end up being custom. If you want to pull X kind of report, or you want to have 20 profiles, or you want to have 10 users, those are all things they can add in. You can really negotiate on what you want to pay based upon what features are most important to you. So that's why I always recommend a demo. All right.
Okay. I'm going to actually be one of the people asking the questions. Haha, and I've got control of the screens too. So watch out, everybody. All right. here we go. So can you walk us through what this content calendar can do? Kind of apply some of what you've been talking about for those who haven't used one before and know that this looks pretty and organized, but wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, so essentially the idea of the content calendar is kind of analogous because it's however you like to plan or plot any other kind of information. For most people, including myself, it's just a literal calendar. And I work with clients, we do month to month because often we're really focusing on a campaign or a strategy, so it kind of stays granular. But a content calendar could be quarterly, and you should have a version that's annually. So that way, let's say right now or at the end of Q3, beginning of Q4, you're planning all the things that are going to happen in the new year. You can start to plot them. You can start to drop and go, hey, we know we're going to celebrate these holidays. So this year we have an office opening on that date, or we have a big project completing on that date, whatever it might be. But the idea is that it should be the place where you can drop information that you don't want to forget, or that you know that you're going to be capturing content for. This is a really great way to kind of back plan. Hey, we should make a video out of that and have a 6-week window in which you have some time to have that made for you or to do it yourself or whatever it is. So the idea behind it is you want to create that plan, that literal plan. We're going to drop this on this day, or this is due this day. And that could be in Kanban, like I mentioned. That could be on a monthly calendar. That could be on a Slack channel. There's a lot there. It can also be where you plot all of your marketing activities. That could be when the blog post goes live, the e-blast goes out, the monthly newsletter, the specialty campaign or the target campaign, whatever you may be, if you're doing paid ads or something like that. This is where all of that can live. So when you're looking for a particular channel, or you're planning that newsletter and you're going, I'm tired of seeing the same 3 topics or the 3 sections in the newsletter, I'm going to hop over here and I'm going to see what else is going on. Could we talk about? Because a lot of times those are siloed calendars or conversations or plans, and it does not need to be that way, especially if you're in social or if you're working on something that's really limited, like a once a month or once a quarter email. You want to have the most information possible so you can start to create content or target what those followers or readers are actually interested in, what they're clicking on, and make better decisions going forward. So how you actually use it is that's where you kind of place everything and start organizing it, and make decisions based upon what you want to do.
So it's kind of a 3-pronged tool. It's a repository for things you accumulate that you want to plot later. It's an organizer so that you can plan for future use. And it's also a historical data archive.
Yeah,
so you know
absolutely.
what smart decisions to make with your content as you move forward, and what channels to use, and what types of media worked well and what types of content didn't.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, because I know, for example, in the HubSpot content calendar, they have one you can download. They have like a whole bank of templates you can download for content creation on HubSpot, and anyone can have it. It's free. I can put the link in there. But
I've got HubSpot and I didn't know that.
yeah, so it's really fun. HubSpot Academy is great. It's free as well. You can take all kinds of classes. But one of the tabs in their content calendar is that annual tab, and that's where you can look back. Let's say if you do an audit of everything you posted or wrote about or whatever the year previously, there are things are going to happen every single year. The company picnic, or the community event you sponsor every year, or the conference you always attend. And there's one tab that is just dedicated to listing all those things. So that in itself is incredibly valuable, because that might be 10 or 15% of your planning for the whole year. If it's a really big deal, it may even be more. So often people kind of think they're going to remember, or hope they remember. But if you have that list already going, if you take that time to kind of look back and capture all of it again, you can also capture those captions or those photos or those hashtags that you used, and put that there too. So you have a starting point for how you want to talk about that topic when you come back to it in 3 months or 6 months or whatever. You have somewhere to go right away. You don't have to start from scratch.
That's a really great dovetail into what we're going to talk about next. And I'm going to go briefly so that we take enough time to have our discussion and Q&A. But as you can see, similar to the template that Megan just provided and all that amazing information, I mean, really, I want to point out that, thank you, Megan, for doing what you always do for me and talking about the fact that there is a tool, but the tool is only as useful as understanding the bigger picture. And you did a great job of explaining the bigger picture, all of the different thought processes that go into content creation. And then the content calendar is a piece of that. So excellent job. And I'm really grateful. Thank you. This content calendar is actually what we use internally for L12 services. It's a basic spreadsheet. And what I can do is I can do a new share that shows you what the spreadsheet looks like in Excel. And as you can see here, we have January, February, March. Every month has its own little tab. And the things that I know are always going to be there, I've color coded and I've put on their specific dates. So I'm scheduling and blocking that time for those resources on a regular basis. And I have it plotted out for the first quarter. After that, it's blank, because it may turn out that in March, I realize that my internal folks aren't responding to my blog posts, or they aren't responding to my calls of action for other types of messaging campaigns like benefits enrollment or the office move. I'm tracking historically the information that I put in this content calendar that I've planned in advance, so that the next quarter I can make good decisions about this channel works, this channel doesn't, this type of content works, this type of content doesn't. Internally speaking, what I'm trying to do is communicate our company's goals, our company's initiatives, launches, programs, new activity in different geographic hubs. And I'm pretty sure that you're all familiar with the idea that internal communications are a bit different than external communications. But with internal communications, you do, to a certain degree, have a bit more control. Yes, you will get a link to this template. However, it's just a spreadsheet. You can Google, Smartsheet or Excel or Monday.com, and they all have these free resources. Just pretty it up and fill it with the colors that make sense to you, and off you go to the races. But I will be sharing this. The audiences that you have internally, most of them need to know that larger organizational information. But then as you segment down, there are going to be different departments or different communities or different cultures that need to know certain bits of information and may not use the company newsletter or may not use blast email, but you find that they go to your website, or you find that they're active downloading internal podcasts. You want to be able to look at the messages that you want to send out, how you need them to land, meaning who all needs to get them, why they're important to different segments or to the entire population, and then look at the different channels that you want to use to deploy that information. This starts sounding really complicated because we've gone from big to smaller, and we can go even more granular than that, but we're talking about a layered internal communications plan. And this content calendar helps you deploy that. The purpose of the content calendar internally is to prevent people from information overload, to prevent messages from stepping on one another, so in other words, message clarity, and to align the resources that you have available, meaning manpower, graphics design, and anybody that needs to contribute the time that it takes to build an article or create and finalize an interview and approval processes, making sure that there's enough time and space in between all of those things so that your messages are consistent. so that you're preventing chaos, so that you're preventing noise, so that you're preventing that TLDR response. Because you can have the shortest message in the world, but if it's been previously outgunned by 6 or 7 other messages in rapid fire, nobody's going to read that either. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to identify what messages work on which channels best, how much time in between messages do audiences need, and whether or not you are able to create message consistency over a certain period of time so that your messages are clear. And this is the tool that will help you do that. I unfortunately can't see chat while I'm in presentation mode. So as soon as I'm out of this slide, I will roll back and answer those questions.
I will say we're actually having a love affair about Airtable. So we've been somewhat shared an Airtable template, and which Airtable is amazing if you haven't played with it before.
Fantastic. But you're going to want to, make sure that you capture information like project type, project goal, target audience. Even internally, you have multiple audiences. If you're going to be using a media outlet, that's generally external, but you may be combining your external and your internal information for something like a project launch or a new leadership position or an office move. What you're trying to promote, how you're going to measure that success. Metadata is, something that Megan can explain far better than me. And then any comments, write down what worked, what didn't, any feedback you got. Let me get out of this slide then, and I see that we've got a question, so hang on real quick, and I will get back to the slideshow. And with the half hour that we have left, we'll quickly go over themes and solutions, and then we'll go into Q&A. Let me pull up the chat now that I can see that. All right. We use Wrike for project management, but I haven't found their calendar all that great. So here's where I am going to take a different tack than Megan, specifically because of the audiences that we're talking about internally. Many questions came through the survey about how do I, and this is actually kind of toward Brad's question, how do I feed the beast? How do I engage other content creators so that they stay on track, so that they stay in a position of authority and that they inform me in time? Project management software is great for managing projects, but I don't find it ideal for content calendars, and it's hard to get people to agree to contribute and to learn a new software and a way to use it. Sometimes the best answer is the simplest one, and a spreadsheet that you can share is just enough. You're always trying to look for the lowest hanging fruit in creating internal comms within a team. You're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to contribute and for people to get their questions answered and for people to learn information. So if you can use your Wrike for project management, and you can use a spreadsheet either within Wrike or as an add-on, something to the side, I recommend doing that because the multi-generational workforce can at least come together in most everybody understanding that type of software. Does that make sense, Jennifer? Okay. Let's see. Have I missed any other questions other than Jennifer's? No, I don't.
Valerie had her hand raised.
Valerie, please.
Hi, thank you. So my question goes back to your content calendar that you presented, the slide prior to this. And I really love that idea. And I also love the idea of Megan's content calendar that she presented. Now, how do you marry those two to make it easier to send out content through a variety of channels? That's one of the things I struggle with, and without having two Excel sheets. And then my second question is, I agree with making it as easy as possible for people to contribute content. But, you know, if you're an organization of 3 communication professionals, how do we even get our fellow employees to contribute content? Like, they're so busy with their own projects that they don't even think about sharing it to the communications teams. So twofold question there, 2 separate questions.
I'm going to ask Megan to answer the first question, and I'm going to table the second question until we get into the discussion, because that's part of several other questions, if that's okay, Valerie.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, so Valerie, yeah, 2 great questions, especially the second one. That's one of the biggest ones, no matter what industry, no matter what size your organization, that people struggle with. So for the first one, how do we have sort of that high view, or how do we merge 2 calendars, or how do we have it where it's accessible to both? A little bit leaning on what Elizabeth said, you know, if you are just using a spreadsheet, have the all schedule or whatever tab, and then break it into, have additional tabs be just about that particular delivery method. If it's email, if it's web, if it's social, if it's just related to those things, and then you can have those people who ever own those different channels manage those tabs and be tasked with updating or making any edits to that primary calendar that lists all the activities. So that way there is one place for everything. But if you need a more granular view, you can have it. I would say if you're in Teams, one strategy I've used within Teams or within a lot of different processes, but primarily Teams, is within a particular, let's say, a marketing channel, having, or marketing, you know, team, and then having individual channels by that, whatever that email, web, social, et cetera, internal, external, is really, really helpful, because then you can solve problems in those individual channels that can then, you have the archivery of the thread of what was decided and by who, or who approved it. And so anytime you're making reviews or you're making updates, you have that one place to go to. And that may be the bigger solution, which is that, where do you make these decisions or give approvals or make decisions? Or when you have a meeting between your team of 3, what's the document, or where's the place where you actually go first to kind of see what's changed or what's updated or what needs to be made if it's not the agenda? There may be a natural place for you to create more granular views, so that way owners own them and it's central to the bigger picture. So it may just be in that kind of straightforward organizational space, but I really empower people who do own those different properties, or if it is one person, to decide what information needs to be on that detail view and what needs to be just in that kind of overall calendar feature. So that's one strategy, but there are several, but that's kind of the most simplified way to do it. And then if there are any approvals process and things like that, then you can follow whatever process you already have for that.
So from the survey, we came out of it with several themes, and I tried to connect solutions to each of them. When you receive this recording, hopefully you'll be able to look at this and say, or actually I'll share the slide deck. You'll be able to look at it and say, okay, I have an issue with relevancy, engagement, and analytics. Okay, these 4 items are, these 4 bullet points are solutions to that problem. And I'll talk through them a little bit, especially on the next slide. But I wanted you to know that content accountability and reporting, content strategy and organization, relevancy, engagement, and analytics, time required to create engaging content, how to create a content calendar and what it does, and social media were the top 6 themes that we were dealing with. And there are solutions that go with all of them. As I've said previously in these discussions, you have joined because you have questions, and I am a resource. So whatever we don't cover during these discussions, I really want you to reach out to me so we can talk them through or brainstorm. It's not about sales, it's about solving a problem. And that is the legacy that I'm going to leave behind me when I'm no longer working, is that we're going to change the way that the world does work. We're going to make it easier, and we're going to make it more enjoyable. And if you ask me the questions, I will do whatever I can to share the answers and the experience that me and my team have gained over the last 14 years. I enjoy that. So please keep in mind that if we don't cover all of this, I am here, I am eminently reachable, and I would enjoy helping you through all of this. So this is a clarifying slide as compared to the last one. Those 6 themes are right here in bullet points, and they all go to support your content calendar. So your communications policy clarifies channel use and assigns roles. That helps you when you are managing people who are content creators that are working with you or directly beneath you, to give them an idea of what they need to provide to you, when they need to provide it, what the chain of command looks like, and that there are guardrails. There are dates that drafts are due. There are dates that, like in any journalism organization, there are dates of drafts that are due, and then there are dates that everything goes live. And your internal comms department, whether it's led by one and has many volunteers, or if it's many people within the organization representing different departments, clarifying what their timelines look like is super important. And Elizabeth, you actually work in the world that I used to work in, and I believe that we have a couple common friends, but I feel your pain. I know what it's like to get people in that issue advocacy area to create content on time, make it relevant, get it edited, get the approvals. It is a stretch and it's difficult. But with clarification, you can put some ground rules in place and help to make that a little bit easier. Reach out to me though specifically, or talk to Jessica Setnick and get a referral that I do know what I'm talking about. And let's talk that through, because I would be happy to help you. I think that some of the players that you might be working with are people that I know. A layered communications strategy, similar to your communications policy. It helps you increase reach. It helps you structure your content calendar. And it, again, allows you to have rules of the game in place so people know what kind of content they need to create for which channel, for which dates, and what audiences they're trying to reach. So it's really about clarifying and planning and creating strategy in advance. Similarly, everybody needs a feedback mechanism. If you haven't thought about that before, it needs to be, there needs to be a feedback mechanism in your blast emails and in your newsletters. Just a little line that says, need more information, and directs people toward an email address, an actual human that's been identified to answer questions. Or if there's detailed information on your single source of truth, that link sends them directly there. Your intranet, your single source of truth, as Meagan said, that is a sacred space that houses everything. It is your knowledge repository. Excuse me. If you don't have one, it's really critical that you allow people to reach back out to you, because internal communications is not a one-way street. It's a dialogue. When it's successful, it's a dialogue where people can find out more information, maybe volunteer, maybe ask questions. And one of the beauties of being able to utilize a feedback mechanism is you start to gather similar questions, and those similar questions turn into an FAQ, and people then start to turn to the location of that FAQ before they call HR, before they call the person who created that content. And that, in a very real way, saves time, which saves money, which makes you more efficient. So it's important that you think not just about what you want to communicate to other people, but the fact that those people may have questions that you haven't even thought of, and allow them to communicate back with you. Surveying your workforce, that will provide you insight on relevancy of information, the user experience, and channel use. And then a channel assessment, much like Meagan was talking about, it supports your analytics and helps you organize your information. Oftentimes larger organizations realize that, they may have 6 or 7 different channels, but really their audiences are only using 4. And so those extra channels become chaotic, and they become noise, and they become confusing. An organization isn't neatly packaged in places where everybody knows where it is. It's kind of distributed and scattered across the channels. You want to tighten that up as much as possible, and then take that list and start plotting it on your content calendar. The channels that you're going to use are the same channels that you just whittled down through that channel assessment. And then, as I mentioned, your single source of truth or your intranet. It's your knowledge repository. It provides the details of any content that you've distributed, and it is your one location for zero chaos. I'm going to pass this up because I want to leave time for Q&A, but I will be happy to discuss this. It's really just a framework for how to step-by-step create successful internal communications. And again, if you have questions about it, I'm more than happy to connect with you. There are also videos that explain this on our website. So now let's get into the group discussion. And I'd like to start out with Brad's question, because I thought it perfectly encapsulated what many of you are trying to fix. That how do we feed the beast? It's like pulling teeth in order to get people to give us content. We have people distributed throughout the university or the organization or the laboratory, and they think that their information is either top priority and nobody else thinks so, or they don't think that their information is of any priority and we really need it from them. It's all part and parcel of the same problem. And what we're trying to do with the content calendar is to do a couple things. Obviously, organize as we've discussed, and plot as we've discussed. But I had a conversation with Meagan the other day about what it looks like for a fitness center, a chain, whether it's a fitness center or it's a chain of any other type of organizations, to leverage their internal influencers. Meagan, would you mind talking about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. So with any group or any organization where you have multiple multidisciplinary employees who either participate in really visible things. I know some people mention, like, we don't have photos of things, and we don't get the information about an exciting thing until afterwards, or there's a lot of that, once again, disconnect between events or significant milestones happening and the people responsible with sharing that. There's often a challenge to make those two groups meet. So the strategy I bring to teams who have this problem is I actually have them step back from, kind of their list of things they have to get, proof from or whatever it is. And we actually look at your workforce as a whole. And I do that by, I call it a skills matrix. I'm sure there's a much cooler phrase for it, but it's essentially actually deciding what content you're going to have made. If it's the video, if it's a white paper, if it's content for social media, and understanding who is already creating content, who's already somebody who's naturally inclined to write or to photograph or to video, or who has a drone, or who posts befores and afters. We talked about the fitness center example. There are people who are trainers, who lead classes, who have their own followings, who actually manage maybe multiple accounts and do lots of different things publicly. And so how do you actually get them to share that content with you or with a manager or whatever it may be? Similarly to if you have a team that's in LA and you have a team in New York and they're doing really cool things, and then they'll just post them, on the internet, and it ends up dying there. Understanding that you have natural content creators, because now we have 3 generations who have been creating content automatically for over 20 years or almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years for me in Facebook in 2024, which I think is surreal. And to actually decide what content you're going to have on your calendar, what you're going to go after, and then engage those employees who are already natural content creators. There are several ways to do this. Of course, if somebody is a fantastic photographer, an events person, or architecture or landscape, whatever it may be, and knowing that they may do it for a personal account or whatever, having that direct conversation and saying, hey, these are the projects we're going after. We'd love for you to participate. This is a great way for you to expand your reach or to get access to our really cool camera or whatever it is. Identifying who those people are. And this actually applies to a lot of different things. This could be your LinkedIn power users. This could be people who make really cool TikToks just for fun. This could be people who are great at BD. It doesn't really matter, but it's actually understanding different skill sets of your employees that could fit into a marketing activity. And then creating those relationships, giving them a way to easily share content with you. That could be on a Teams channel where people just post things and share them with you, and then you get to decide and filter out what's good or not. But in relation to the idea of how would you get a team of people at different locations and things to want to participate is one, of course, you can incentivize. You can incentivize through actually giving them or rewarding them for sharing content with you. This is a really common tool. It could be a gift card. It could be hours off. It could be other, whatever fits in the model of your company, but also telling them that the content that they share, that they create and share and send to you first or to whoever manages the bigger accounts, gives them a broader reach. By tapping into that network, similarly how I mentioned the reverse, if you get your employees to share your company's content, you have a much larger network that you're reaching out to over time. It's the same. If you have someone who is a really awesome yoga instructor who gets a lot of really great content made, or is a really cool personal trainer who's got amazing befores and afters, what do they want? What do they want more than anything? They want more people to come to their class. They want more clients. They want more exposure to how they help people or what stories they have to share. There's so much there, and that relates to a lot of different industries. But incentivizing for them to come to you first and say, help me get this out there. All we're doing is telling stories. All we're doing is showing best practices. We're creating resources, solutions. We're giving people different ideas. That was going back to one of the slides that I had about the types of content. If you're struggling with getting people to submit content to you, what is the idea you're actually trying to capture? Is it, and what's the overall goal? So how do you find these people? You either conduct internal interviews or really informal polls, and you find out who's really cool and who does neat things, and you start that dialogue. What are they interested in? What excites them? What are they trying? What do they want to dabble in? And then creating that process that's seamless for them to get the most recognition and reward, and for you to get a continual relationship of content and things like that. There's a lot there that you can do. And it has to fit, of course, within the culture of your company, but that could be financial incentives, that could be internal incentives, that may just be the recognition, that may be what they want. But understanding your employees, knowing who's working or doing things or who is interested in these things, that's where you have to start. You can't force someone who's not a writer to write a blog post. You can't force someone who's not a video creator who doesn't have a smartphone. So being realistic about that and tapping into those natural content creators is really step one.
What other questions do you have for us? Please raise your hand, go off mute, type in the chat, whatever makes you happy. Is Jolene Kelly here? Oh. I like your ideas, Megan, but I don't even find out about events projects until after the fact.
That's a tough one, Valerie. I've been there. I've totally been there. If there's a way for you to get an advocate who can be your whisperer, if that's possible, that's one of the ways around it. Or additionally, if that is how it is, and there's not a lot of wiggle room there, create a strategy around how you talk about things that have already happened. Is it how do you build FOMO, or how do you build interest in something by telling the full picture of how something came together or how an event went, and what are the stories or the highlights or whatever the core reason of that even taking place would be. You can build a strategy around that and still make it engaging, because it's part of a larger thread. If you're a group that does a lot of events and things like that, you know, you've got a continuous kind of idea of what people are engaged in. And it's really just about finding a way to tell that story in a fresh way and not make it feel like a recap, because that is sort of the default way to go. But it's definitely a challenge. So if you can find an advocate who understands your challenge and can help you be your eyes and ears, or, coming up with a different way for you to get into those rooms or get into those meetings so you can be a fly on the wall and capture that information. And if not, think about reworking your strategy, because that's something that we all have to deal with. So I totally understand, and good luck.
Okay, we're going to take 2 questions. First, Jolene, and then second, Krista Bell. Jolene, in the survey, you talked about planning content for a large agency and ensuring all work sites are incorporated into the plan. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? You may be on mute. Oh no. Okay. Well, we'll try and get that fixed. Krista Bell, you talked about increasing focus on people's own work and labs with less contact with the larger organization. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. I work for a lab, and we have laboratories underneath us. And I find people are very interested in their work, and sometimes it's hard to even get them engaged in what's happening within their lab group, much less the larger organization. And so we struggle with how do we get people aware and engaged after they're used to just like head down, not paying attention to whatever's going on outside their cube.
My first thought is to focus group your population to find out what they find exciting, where they would like to see it, and how frequently they'd like to know about it. But I'd love to hear, Megan, do you have other thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you can use data to support you kind of getting your foot in the door. Also, I'd really recommend finding a way, either someone who is at your level or who can kind of, once again, open that door into that lab, to help you get an idea of what is upcoming, maybe 2 or 3 quarters or over the course of the year, just so you can, just for one, to get awareness, if their projects are ongoing, if they're long-term, if they're short-term, just so you can understand what their schedules are like, or what, that kind of flow of work is. That can actually help you decide too, should we go to this lab or this lab? Is this lab more likely to have content creators or to have other people where you're on the ground and you can capture something? But being able to prioritize and not think of them all as the same level or the same output potential for content is really important. If you can get that down to 3 or 4, and then, meet them or have calls and say, here's our goal and here's what people are asking for, and have that data or that information, and then clearly explain what the deliverables will be. Then get your person on the ground who can be the PM or whatever to get you what you need. You shouldn't feel like you're the only person tapping into that group to get that information. There should be someone there who becomes the owner, to keep people on the ground, or whatever, if it's content, if it's a video, if it's quotes, if it's anything like that, or just project updates. But you need to build the rhythm with those labs, so that way they have a place to send it to when they find out new information. How can you build that relationship? Similar to what Elizabeth was saying, it's a conversation. It shouldn't just be a drop-in. So that may help them feel more comfortable with sharing their wins. That might be just all it takes, is that recognition. So that would be my recommendation to kind of sorting out, so you don't have to think about how would I manage a large group of these things. So could we actually just spotlight 1 per quarter or something like that? You may have better ways to sort it that make it more manageable.
Okay,
I think
thanks.
we're going to close out with Janelle's question. How are you polling, or how often are you surveying your audience for what they want to see? From my point of view, survey fatigue is a real thing, and polling fatigue is a real thing. People have been asked their opinion so many times, and quite often those outcomes or those results don't have any legs to them. So they end up feeling as though they were manipulated, or that their time was wasted, and it's just bad for everybody. So one of the ways that I get around that is to hold one full population poll, maybe hidden within a client's engagement survey or their annual survey. But from there, I'll take the raw data to see, and that's just a really high level, are people engaging? If they're not engaging, why aren't they engaging? Aha. So my next step is to focus group, which means we're taking a smaller population and we're having a conversation, and we're describing during that conversation how the information that they're sharing with us and the time that they're spending with us will have legs in X outcome. It will improve X. It will save time X. We're connecting or putting legs on outcomes that directly relate to the time and the brain power that they're sharing with us, and we're thanking them for that. Just a fun fact for us, we also give out thank yous and incentivizing them. Usually it's something like a Starbucks gift card, but similar to what Megan was talking about. So how often are we doing that? We won't poll an entire population on the same information more than once every 6 months, but we'll hold focus groups and iterate until we find that we've gotten the sweet spot of that channel use or that newsletter use or the user experience of the intranet. The focus groups are smaller, they're fewer people, their outcomes are tied to the information that was given, and they are hopefully improving over time, so that when the intranet is a place where people see themselves in it and they go to it often and they get their information from it, there's no more reason then to survey or poll or focus group. So it's time limited based on the successful outcome of that project. And we probably wouldn't do that unless it was like a super short deadline and everybody was totally behind the project. We probably wouldn't do that more than twice a month, and we would use different groups of people each time. So I want to thank Meagan for her expertise and her time and her really valuable information. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming to join our third in a series. The next 3 are on January 24th, February 14th, and March 6th. Please join me. March 6th will be 2 days after my birthday, so if you all come, it'll be a great party. This is going to conclude our first series of internal communications collections webinars. And after they're done, we're going to be talking to all of you briefly, maybe a poll, maybe a survey, maybe a focus group, to see where we did it right and where we missed the mark. And we will be redeploying this series again later in 2024. So if you missed any of the previous webinars, don't worry. They'll be coming back around again, bigger, better, and stronger. So I will be distributing my slides in the recording and a post-event survey that hopefully you will complete for me. I know Meagan will be reaching out with her slides and some follow-up information. And I'd just, again, like to say thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on January 24th.